All right, welcome to Relatively Conscious. My name is Antonius Brown.
Irvin Bryant.
Also want to shout out to our DJ for making the beat.
That's DJ DW at DW Made That on social media.
We're talking about voting today. All right. So, real quick, what does voting look like since the pandemic started?
I mean, will it happen? Will it not?
Yeah,
is really the question. As everything is questioned as to whether or not it will occur. Schools are being pushed back, especially here in the state of Texas. 6 weeks, a month, couple months, and that's a government service that constitutionally you have to attend, right? As a child under 18. So when we look at voting, something that you don't have to do, but the government has to provide, the question arises, and the president has risen this question: why don't we just change the date? Because a lot of y'all were trying to vote by mail, and I'm not feeling it. Yeah.
So some states have postponed primaries. So they had the primaries supposed to be in March, and they postponed it to June. And then the other places like New York and Georgia, they try to run an all in-person voting election and a mail-in election. Well, at the same time, but separately.
Yes.
And they didn't have enough money to do that, right? In New York, it was like 2 weeks afterwards, and they still were having probably issues with counting ballots. 25% of the mail-in ballots got thrown away.
Tonight, 6 weeks after the New York Democratic primary, congressional candidate Suraj Patel doesn't know if he won or lost because election officials have yet to announce a winner.
It was just a complete mess of a system.
The reason? 10 times more New Yorkers, a whopping 1.8 million, requested absentee ballots than did 4 years ago. Experts tell NBC News New York election officials were woefully unprepared. Governor Andrew Cuomo had tried to make the process easier by sending postage-paid envelopes with all requested ballots. But that ended up backfiring because to be counted, ballots need to be postmarked with a date, something the post office doesn't usually do for prepaid metered mail. So those ballots, thousands of them, were not counted.
You are not entitled to a perfect election in America, but you are entitled to a free and fair one.
Patel, who's trailing by 3,700 votes, sued to have more ballots without postmarks counted. Overnight, a judge ruling at least 1,000 disputed ballots must be included.
Georgia had the same issue. Actually, Stacey Abrams, who was the person who ran for the governorship, she got her mail-in ballot, and the envelope that she had to put her ballot inside of was sealed, and she couldn't open it. And so then she had to go vote in person, right? So why are Republicans hesitant for mail-in?
Yes. Because Republicans are, and I'm going to say it, they're anti-democratic, okay? One party is, by and large, it's not monolithic, in favor of voting rights, accessibility of the institution of voting, the bedrock of democracy in any particular case. And the other institutes voter ID laws, in a past life, in a past iteration of itself, was the architect of, grandfathering folks into voting rights and excluding others, and literacy exams, like all kinds of odd and Byzantine ways to keep black, brown, poor people from voting. And so voter ID laws was the last attempt that we saw in my lifetime, actually preventing me from voting on my first vote. And this go around, well, if we wanted to limit accessibility to those who have the most means and are white, then what we want to do is close polling locations, right? Especially those in broke neighborhoods, public libraries. So y'all don't need them. And close off the mail-in voting, which is where a lot of the elderly, poor, black, and Hispanic families vote, especially when we're talking about in rural areas. So cut all that off, and then we can get the voting population to look more like what I want it to look like.
Yeah, so small d Democratic or less small d Democratic, right? And if you want to talk about you want to get back to what Hobbes thought about, the state, right? There is a belief, a belief that many conservatives have, where they have a fear of the mob, right, or the fear of the people's choice, right? So,
undemocratic.
Yeah. So the reason why we had the electoral college is because people felt that we couldn't trust the people to vote in a good president. And I think time and time again we see these conservatives who have a lot of money, who read the Wall Street Journal, money is in the stock market, right? And who believe that those who have less money than them are another class to them.
Yes.
Just don't have the technical or the intellectual ability to choose a president correctly.
And that's what they say.
Yeah, that's what they say.
You can hear that on the evening news, particularly on conservative news, that certain sections of the population are irresponsible, and if you can't meet these requirements, then you shouldn't be voting anyway. So they would say about prisoners, ex-felons, right? Where, in certain states they don't have the right to vote. So that's what it said. But I believe the actual impetus, ethos, mindset behind restricting voting rights is, simply to control power and capital. Because, if there's so many people who are not like me voting, then they're less likely to vote for me. And I don't want to do things for them. So why would they vote for me? I'm not doing anything for their interests. So how do I maintain my office? Do I give of myself selflessly? Do I sacrifice and do things that will benefit other people other than myself? Or do I rig the competition to make sure I win?
North Carolina, the Democrats got more votes, but Republicans kept the seats. Wisconsin, when they voted in a Democratic governor, the Republicans and the Wisconsin state legislature stripped the governor of power right before he became governor, right? So time and time again, we see these issues.
Real quick, you brought up Stacey Abrams.
Yeah.
In the case of her recent not election, it was in 2018?
Yeah, 2018 in Georgia.
Yeah, so 2018 Georgia, Stacey Abrams was running for governor, and the incumbent, or he wasn't incumbent, he was
the Secretary of State.
He was the Secretary of State running for the office of governor. Secretary of State oversees voting in the state of Georgia and many others. Purges voter rolls, so people who were previously just riding on an old voter registration were now unable to vote because they weren't registered. And of course, if you show up to the polls and you're not on the list, there's no getting on the list, and the numbers reflect it.
Yeah, and then even in Texas, purging voter rolls. Let's go back 2000 election in Florida, they purged voter rolls. There's like a story of a preacher who got his name purged off the voter roll because the same name was a felon. Instead of them calling, asking him a question about it, they just threw his name off the list. And, you know what he looked like. He was black, right? Real quick to foreign interference, right? So there's reports came out that China's looking to help the election for Joe Biden.
Yes. And
Russia, like we already know, is looking to help Donald Trump.
Some new developments today on another major issue. The security of this November's elections. A top U.S. intelligence official, William Evanina, released a statement that details the intelligence community's current assessment of potential foreign interference. Evanina raised concern about the ongoing and potential activity by China, Russia, and Iran. On Chinese influence, he said intelligence agencies assess that China prefers that President Trump, whom Beijing sees as unpredictable, does not win re-election, and that Russia is using a range of measures to primarily denigrate former Vice President Biden.
And it's really crazy because Barr, when they asked Barr, what did he?
William Barr.
William Barr, yeah, the Attorney General.
Yes.
Whether or not a election to take help from a foreign government, it took this man 17 seconds to come up with the answer, right?
Is it ever appropriate, sir, for the president to solicit or accept foreign assistance in an election?
It depends what kind of assistance.
Is it ever appropriate for the president or presidential candidate to accept or solicit foreign assistance of any kind in his or her election?
No, it's not appropriate.
Okay. Sorry you had to struggle with that one, Mr. Attorney General.
Which is just ridiculous, yeah.
As a point of reference, you may remember when esteemed hip-hop writer Torre asked Robert Kelly, do you like teenagers, like sexually?
Wondering about you. Do you like teenage girls?
When you say teenage, how are we talking?
Girls who are teenagers.
19?
And he paused.
Yeah.
And answered, "Well, what do you mean by teenager?" That's the wrong answer.
Yeah.
Certain questions, did you take the cookie from the cookie jar? The answer's no.
Yeah.
And, foreign powers meddling in the election, the answer's no.
It should not take you 17 seconds.
It's just,
hey man, who's Attorney General should not take that long to answer that question. Yeah.
He is the law.
Yeah.
The law. This is him.
And so the question becomes, though, because really smart, people smarter than me ask the question. CIA, the FBI telling us this. What exactly do they want us to do with that information? Because what it sets up is in November where whoever wins, the other side can say this election is fraudulent, cannot accept the results because they believe the other side, foreign interference helped them win, right? So if Donald Trump wins, we can say the Russians did it. If Joe Biden wins, your next door neighbor is going to be like, well, it was China that helped him become president.
She throwing my neighbor into it. Okay, cool. So now the tables have turned.
Yeah.
Because a second ago we were saying everybody should vote because democracy, we all live here, come on now. And but now then we consider populating the news with conspiracies of rumors and foreign meddling. We think, okay, hold up. Maybe not everybody should be voting, or maybe not everybody should have this crucial information about voting, because the real warning is, okay, if we know that foreign powers are meddling, we should ignore those voices, ignore the conspiracy theories coming from either side, because there are just lies being told about both sides. Ignore that and push forward. But we're not, as a populace, smart enough, educated enough, or whatever, discerning enough to say, okay, so Biden is not a reptile, is not a lizard person, and Trump has done a bunch of crazy stuff, but he's not Satan himself, and let's vote accordingly. Mm-hmm. Like, we have a hard time, according to Facebook, parsing through those things.
It just sets the stage to make it easier for Donald Trump to, throw the election out.
In a world, in a post-conspiracy world, right, I think conspiracy theories always existed, obviously. I said in the language was fake. But in a world where Donald Trump has already run this whole, or spun this campaign in his campaign for president initially. He said he was not going to accept results that weren't in his favor.
Right.
Because of XYZ conspiracy. You do begin to believe that, okay, maybe it's not the best idea to tell everybody that the Chinese are coming.
It's crazy because you would think you want to give voters the information. You think the more information a voter has, the more better decision they can make. It's almost if I'm giving them the information, it just doesn't help them make a better decision,
I mean, it's like this. If you got a child right now, 3, 4, 5 years old, you know what I'm saying? You might tell them that Santa isn't real because I work hard for them presents. But you're not going to say, like, the Taliban is real, though. And they're out there and, have good luck sleeping. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So you protect certain people from certain information, and maybe this is the thing. Like, Obama didn't say anything when the Russians were meddling. A dubious decision, you could say, but in the status quo, it seems wise.
Yeah, because if, in his mind, if Donald Trump loses, I can then go attack the Russians afterwards, right? Yeah. So let's go quickly to Trump, right? Because he's courting the Russians again. He made the tweet about mail-in voting, about postponing the election. He's been doing a lot of authoritarian Byzantine stuff, right?
Now, we know you may feel like you hear and see a lot of crazy in the news, but this morning, the president, the sitting elected U.S. president, President Trump, has openly floated an idea that has never happened in this country's history. That is, delaying the presidential election when, of course, his own term is up to your vote. It didn't happen during the Civil War, didn't happen during World War II or World War I. In a tweet this morning, he wrote, "With universal mail-in voting, not absentee voting, which is good, 2020 will be the most inaccurate and fraudulent election in history." By the way, he makes that on no factual basis. He makes that charge. "It will be a great embarrassment to the USA. Delay the election until people can properly, securely, and safely vote." That, in a string of tweets, hundreds of them throughout his presidency, is a remarkable thing for a sitting U.S. president to say and suggest, particularly as his public support is dropping and the economy is suffering.
So, is this, should we raise the alarm? Or, it feels as if people haven't raised the alarm loud enough for me, right? Because people aren't really alarmed enough or scared enough for me looking at his actions. But I think his actions really show a propensity for authoritarian actions, right?
Yes.
And it also shows that he's okay with messing up the long succession of power, right?
Yes.
And I really want to question, what do you think Trump's role is going to be in this? Is he going to be able to destroy America but not giving up power? Is he going to be able to do that, or is it overblown to think of him having that power to do that?
Okay, two things. First, you can't. I think we've been to go back to the Bush era. We've been on threat level red for 4 years, and that's really the issue.
Yeah.
Is that you have forgotten about the Mueller investigation.
Yes.
You forgot about the day one lying of the Trump administration.
This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe.
You've forgotten about
the biggest inauguration ever.
You forgot about the porn star. You forgot about all of these things. There's more that I'm not thinking of right now. I know I'm forgetting. There's so many scandals.
James Comey. He fired James Comey.
You forgot about Anthony Scaramucci.
Yeah.
So you can't raise the threat level, the level of alarm higher, especially we just got off of a summer of riots. Summer is waning down, the riots are waning down, and they're still kind of not.
Yeah.
But what can I say? And even though that's true, even though I believe our president is crazy, and we just have lived with this level of loud noise in our ear the whole time, we've adjusted to it. What I will say is, I believe in the American military. Mm-hmm. I believe in a coup. Coups aren't always bad, and if the president refused to abdicate, then we gotta do what we gotta do.
Tell me what happened was that, and I'm gonna leave this off my waking nightmare that I told you about, right? So what could happen is first thing first, election night, as you know it, throw that away.
That's literally not gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen. Peter Jennings not going to give you the results. I just showed my age. Peter Jennings.
What's his name? Chuck Todd?
Yeah.
Chuck Todd is not going to give you that.
Or Wolf Blitzer.
Wolf Blitzer.
He's not going to tell you that who's president on election night. One that's going to happen is they can go to sleep, wake up the next day. Donald Trump's going to declare himself winner. He is not, though, because we have to count all these mail-in ballots. Many states don't like to count mail-in ballots until after the election is over with, right? So after the election, they start counting mail-in ballots. What happened in 2000 was that as they started counting ballots, white people broke into the room when they were counting to stop them from counting because they felt that I can see that happen, and then I can see every election official in some backwoods part in Georgia, Texas, or Wisconsin just throwing out absentee ballots, yelling Kobe while they throw them into the trash can because you didn't sign the signature correctly. There's a whole thing called signature match, where your signature on your driver's license has a matching signature on the back of your mail-in ballot. Yes, I signed myself two different ways. It's ASB and then Antonio Shea Brown. I signed them differently. I forgot how I signed my driver's license, so
my handwriting is horrible. Yeah. It's inconsistent. Every time I sign my signature, it looks different.
But if it looks different, they can Kobe and throw it away. Yeah, so it's so many things that can go wrong. And then Donald Trump keeps saying, "Well, I won." Joe Biden starts bleeding in the polls, but he's like, no, that's fake. I already won. Yeah. And if we go to the Supreme Court's like, it's been too long. We've been doing this for too long. I don't care. Donald Trump won. And then leave with Donald Trump as president, even though Joe Biden probably won the election. Because they happened 2000 with Bush.
Yeah, so I was about to say, it wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, if
waking nightmare, though. That's the nightmare, though.
Yeah. If you're young enough, I would say go vote in person. If you're young enough and you're healthy enough, I would say go vote in person.
Make sure you actually go vote. Yeah. And honestly, I don't trust the youth to vote from home. Y'all didn't show up for Zoom class.
Yeah, so if you're young enough and healthy enough, go vote in person. If you're older, if you got some young people, if you're younger, some older people, help them fill out the ballot. Make sure they do it correctly. They sign all the dots, match up the signatures, send it off, and send it off early. We didn't talk about this yet, but the post office, Donald Trump is gutting it. So yeah,
USPS is trash.
Yeah, so it's a whole thing. We'll drop the link for John Oliver's piece about it because it explains very well. All right, my name is Antonio Brown.
Irvin Bryant.
And this is the Kind of Woke Podcast.
Do it to him, Pete.